Okay, this video is just kind of an overview of a tool that we all have access to through Microsoft 365, and that's called Power BI. It's a sweet kind of data dashboard that gives you some information based on information that we have available to us, the data that we have available to us. It gives you some information in student profiles so that you can learn a little bit more about your students, other than what you see and interact with every day in class. One thing just kind of upfront about this kind of data, it's not confidential data. You as a public school teacher have a right to see this information about students, but you do not have a right to share this information with anybody else. So confidential is not the right word, but private is kind of maybe a better word. Again, because you can access it, you have a right to access it, but you don't have a right to share with anybody else. So this is kind of what one of the dashboards looks like, but I want to kind of take a step back from that and then kind of show you how to access this dashboard. So you'll see here I'm borrowing Lauren Glasgow's account. I appreciate that. I wanted you to see what the dashboard looks like on a teacher account. My account's just a little bit different. So what you'll do to access Power BI is you will log into your Office 365 account, and you'll go up here to this little waffle. And you'll need to find the Power BI app. So click All Apps here, scroll down until you see Power BI, and you'll click into Power BI, and that will kind of take you into the dashboard. So you get to this landing page here, and I want to kind of show you how to navigate to the dashboard. So these dashboards were created by one of our data analysts at Central Office. So if you click Shared with Me on the left-hand side, and you go to all shared profiles with you, you'll see that there are three dashboards available to you. The two that we're going to focus on are the Panorama data dashboard and this student profile dashboard. And you can star those so that they then show up in your workspaces a little bit later. So the first one is the Panorama data. We actually looked at this last spring. If you were here at Fishers last spring, this is based on that Panorama survey, the district-wide survey that every student took in the district, or 80%, I guess, is what I actually filled it out. But you'll be able to see some information here that students self-reported. And this is kind of like more of a social, emotional, based survey. And so if you look at the dashboard here, what's nice about it is it gives you some information. This right here, what you see on your screen, is the average of what students selected for these things for students that you now have in class this year. So you'll see a list of students here, and it's only students that you have in class this year. So this, because it's Lauren Glasgow's account, these are all Lauren Glasgow's students this year. And so this is kind of a composite of all of her students, but you can filter down by individual students. So if I wanted to just look kind of individually at what students selected, I can change that. And when I change that, right, you'll see that the dashboard starts to change, and I can see how this student responded, not only kind of overall to these major categories, but then you can see the actual questions from the survey and see what this student kind of listed. You can also filter if you unclick that. Let's say I look at my whole group again. You can filter by larger categories. So if you wanted to look at all of your students, but then kind of divide that out by race or by gender or students who are exceptional learners, etc., you can do that and kind of get composite averages for all of those as well. So the tool is actually super friendly, user friendly. It's easy to navigate. You have to make sure though that once you turn a filter on, you have to make sure that as you're navigating, you turn filters on and off as you see fit. So because I changed this filter here, it changed her list of students. These are only students who are in this particular race group here, student group here. Okay, so one of the key things is just making sure that you uncheck your filters after you set them. Another way to reset is just by clicking this HSC icon here, and that will reset your dashboard. So that is one benchmark that can be helpful for one of our school improvement goals, which is about sense of belonging. You'll see here, sense of belonging is one of the major categories, and so you can kind of check to see as you scroll through your students, what students have self-identified as low in sense of belonging. Okay, that's one dashboard. The second dashboard is what's called the student profile dashboard, and this is more based on student performance and test scores. So same thing here, you'll see Lauren's students. If I unselect that here, I don't really get a whole lot. But what I can do here, what I see for students is grades that they've had throughout their school career, their performance on the ISTEP test at each of these different grade levels, their performance on the PSAT and SAT if they've taken that, their performance on the ACT, and their performance on AP exams if they've documented AP exams, which is really nice. For some students, they won't have data in here because, let's say you have freshmen and they haven't taken an AP test yet, then they won't have any data there. And then another nice thing about this dashboard, so if I click a student here, you'll see this all start to change. So I've got this student's information here. You'll see his grades have now populated, his ISTEP scores have populated. I would assume that this student is a freshman because he has not taken the PSAT or the SAT, etc. But all the information that we have available in Skyward, but you have to click several times to kind of access. The nice thing is you can go to this dashboard and it's got everything there on one page, just like a snapshot on this dashboard, so that you don't have to go clicking a bunch of things in Skyward to find different test scores. Okay, so what I want to do is show you specifically for our second school improvement goal, which is about college and career readiness, especially as it relates to those PSAT and SAT benchmarks. Obviously, this dashboard can be helpful because it can show you which students have met those benchmarks yet and which students have not. So if I select a student here, we'll look at those indicators again. If one of these squares is red, that means that student has not met that benchmark. And if they're green, that means the student has met this benchmark. So this particular student, you'll see on the PSAT that he took as a 10th grader, probably means he's a junior this year. But as a 10th grader, you'll see he met both benchmarks for reading and math. Again, those are the college and career readiness benchmarks as defined by College Board. And again, he's met both of those because both of those are green. If we select another student here, we'll see here the student is a little bit different, right? So all of the data changed for this student. You'll see he hasn't taken any AP tests, but this student has passed one of the benchmarks, but he has not passed the second. And so he passed his reading benchmark, which is great, but student still has a little bit of work to do to meet the math benchmark. And so that's what this would look like for a student who hasn't met math. And then if we select a third student here, you'll see as this starts to change, you'll see I did a little bit of homework and looked at students before, but this student has not met either benchmark. So he's taken it both as a 10th and an 11th grader, but he has not yet met the benchmark in reading or math. And so as you work with your PLC and you do this kind of data dive a little bit, you'll be able to see students who have not met this benchmark as well by using this student profile dashboard. And so that's kind of an overview of how you use both of these things. I want to put this infographic on the screen that just kind of gives you a little bit of a kind of visual of what I just kind of described, some directions. And so if at any point you wanted to pause your screen and synthesize this, if you're more of a visual learner than just kind of listening to my voice, then this screenshot will help. And so let's talk about what's next. There are some possible interventions. So we'll look at this. This has been loaded into your shared PLC folder. We'll talk about once you do that data dive in Power BI, you can look at what are some possible impact strategies that you can engage with in your PLC. And so you'll look at that for the Future Ready benchmark. And then for our sense of belonging school improvement goal, you can look at some of these impact strategies as well. As you do that, then you want to track student work, et cetera. But again, as long as your time in PLC is spent focusing on curriculum, instruction, and assessment, then you're exactly where you want to be. So that's a quick overview of Power BI. This video will be loaded into Canvas and also loaded into each individual PLC's shared folder so that you can access this video whenever you want.